Welcome to the latest episode of Conversations Over Coffee, a digital runway for growth, fashion in 2024. In today's conversation, we'll be talking with our special guest, Dr. Julie King. Dr. Julie, it's a pleasure to have you on Conversations Over Coffee. How are you today?
I'm really well, thank you for having me.
That's great, that's wonderful. So about your role at the ASBCI, would you like to tell us a bit more about that?
I've only really been doing it since earlier this year, but I've been involved with the ASBCI for a very long time. The ASBCI, the Association of Suppliers to the British Clothing Industry, is an organisation which is really unique because it spans every aspect of the clothing and textile industry in the UK. So we have, for example, the testing houses, the launderers, we have the retailers, we have manufacturers of both garments and products which go into the garments. We have logistics, we have the technology companies such as Fortitude. So we really encompass such a broad range of industry players.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And with this variety of members, recently, have you seen any trends or challenges that your members have been facing?
Absolutely. We're always listening to them, we're always canvassing their opinions, and in recent years there's been a drive obviously towards sustainability as one of the key areas our members are focused on, no matter what sector they're working in. But there's also been a massive shift toward digital. It started many years ago with CAD/CAM, but since COVID it's really picked up in terms of its pace and its scale. Where perhaps some of our members hadn't really invested in comprehensive PLM systems, nowadays they have virtually all invested now, because naturally clothing and textiles industry is a global industry, so they have to work internationally, and these are the systems and the technologies which help them to do that.
Yeah, that's really fantastic, and I definitely know at Fortitude we've seen our customers struggle with a lot of the recent disruptions. First there was COVID, and now there are a lot of geopolitical tensions, and a lot of people's supply chains are struggling, and a lot of people are looking to manufacturers to use technology to fill in these gaps.
Absolutely, and also it's the pressure on lead times as well, getting a product into market, into store. So that encompasses everything, as I was saying, from the raw materials providers and the testing houses, right the way through to the logistics. Product life cycle development is shortening all the time. It has been since the early 2000s, but we've got to a critical pace now.
That's really good. And on that, how do you think fashion is being shaped by technology? Are there specific, AI areas that you are aware of that are really changing the face of fashion?
Not quite yet. We're not there yet. There's a lot of talk about it, there's a lot of interest in it. There's a lot of imagery which is being created for fashion in AI, but it's not really, other than the sort of the front end of customer service, where you have chatbots, we're not seeing that integration into fashion just yet. It's coming in very slowly. I think there's a lot of speculation as to how it will impact on jobs and roles, and some of those certainly around research, report writing, comparative shopping, that type of role could well be replaced by AI in the future, in the not too distant future as well. But at the moment, we see that our members tend to be using it more at the sort of front end of their customer service, rather than integrating it throughout their business practices.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For us, what we've seen when companies have come to us on matters for data and AI, we've seen that firstly with their data, they're really underutilizing the data that they have. They're amassing extensive amounts, but then they don't know what to do with it. It's organized poorly. And so realistically, what we're really trying to help people to do is get better prediction models for the future, for better planning.
I think that's key. because nobody wants to be stuck with a whole load of inventory that they can't sell. The retailers need to make sure that they're ordering the right amounts. The manufacturers and the suppliers need to make sure that they've got that in the pipeline, that they can access the right quantities, and the logistics companies need to make sure that they can deliver on time. So that is one of the key tenets at the moment, I'd say.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And additionally on that, we're seeing in that area people are really struggling to still manage their waste. A lot of companies are throwing out words to, in a way, greenwash their company and say that they are somewhere where they aren't in terms of their sustainability. But how do you think technology can help fashion companies become more sustainable?
Well, we've got some really good examples of it so far. When you look at some of the cutting systems and the lay planning, nowadays you can develop your patterns, you can grade your patterns on the computer, do it all digitally wherever you are in the world with minimal fabric waste. So that's one way in which we're moving toward a zero waste economy. Further back in the pipeline, when you're looking at the dye houses and the print houses, they're being much more careful about their wastewater, recycling it, making sure that it's clean and that it can be passed through their systems again. If we take one step even further back to some of the growers of the crops, such as cotton, for example, we know that some of the very large companies, such as Marks and Spencer's, have been working with the farmers in places like India, so that they're making a real difference in the use of pesticides. They're reducing the use of pesticides, so they've introduced farmers to more natural methods of pest control, which seemed to be gaining traction. And initially it was quite a small group of farmers who were taking this up, but there are so many organisations who are moving towards that now, especially looking at the cotton crops as well. So H&M have been moving forward for many, many years on making all of their cotton sourcing sustainable, and they've achieved that goal now. So H&M they've really worked very hard on this. So you can see at all levels of the industry, we're getting there. We're starting to get there with zero waste.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good that companies are openly demonstrating how they're moving towards sustainability, but don't you think there's a bit more transparency across the whole supply chain that a lot of companies could really benefit from? A lot of them do like to highlight areas where they are making positive changes, but then again, they do tend to leave out areas where, you know, they are not ready to move.
Yeah, and we've seen, again, with our members, some of them have had issues with their supply chain, with their manufacturing. So some of that manufacturing being subcontracted out, which they haven't been aware of, to less than ethical sources. And so some of this work that's being done now throughout the ASBCI with our sustainability and digital focus, and throughout the industry as well, some of that work is really starting to pay dividends. So where manufacturers, retailers have been called out by the media around some of their sustainable and ethical practices, that has in many ways helped to shift the ground forward for us, so that we're seeing that brands such as Boohoo, for example, they opened their own factory in Leicester because they had some issues in the media with accusations. We've got other members such as Fashion Enter, based in both London and Leicester and Wales, who are looking at how they can manufacture in the UK so that resources are saved, so that there's less shipping, and they're closer to market, so they can turn product around faster than having it made perhaps, in the Far East. So things are starting to change, and that has been driven for many years now, but definitely picked up momentum throughout COVID, because there was such a demand for products and for online shopping as well.
Yes, definitely, and every consumer has their own individual responsibility. But on the part from industry, do you feel as if they are really doing their best to help consumers to take this seriously, take sustainable action seriously?
They do. There are obviously some of the stars out there who've been doing it for a long time, such as Patagonia, who have always encouraged their clients to come along and to recycle some of their products. And Marks and Spencer's again are another good example of that too. It needs to be a consumer shift, and at the moment the consumer mentality hasn't shifted that much, and that's partly to do with the cost of living crisis, which we've experienced in the UK in particular, but other countries have also experienced in the last couple of years. So consumers now, from what our members are telling us, they're looking for good value products which don't necessarily have that provenance of 100% organic or 100% sustainable, but they're looking for products which would last, and products that are perhaps more classic as well. So there's a real shift in consumer behaviour. Part of that started during COVID, when we moved away from more formal business wear into a huge boom in athleisure, and now that has become much more accepted in the workplace as well. So there are a number of factors, but there's always going to be a pocket of consumer who is just looking for something cheap and cheerful to wear on a Saturday night and isn't really interested in the life cycle of that product or the provenance of that product, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's definitely a big issue, and on the consumer's responsibility also. We know there is a big issue for companies when it comes to returns, free returns. People are still trying to buy, buying and then just trying multiple styles, colours, then returning them. And a lot of the time, the clothes aren't in a resellable condition. Where do you think industry can really nip their consumers in the bud, but also not turn their consumers away?
Well, some of our members have been using a virtual try-on system for quite a long time, and of course, again, COVID and the boom in online shopping really helped to push that forward. So virtual try-ons allow the consumer to see how they might look in something, how it might fit, and whether or not the length would be appropriate. So essentially, you just plug in your measurements, your height, your arm length if you're a guy, inside leg length, waist measurements, and then you'll do the virtual try-on. Whether or not all consumers are going to take the time to do that, I'm not sure. As you said, what consumers tend to do is they'll buy a couple of sizes of a few things and try them on at home because it's more private, it's more comfortable for them, it's cheaper than perhaps getting in the car, driving into a city, paying for parking, and then going off and having a coffee or lunch as well. So if you just order it a couple of sizes at home, try it on, send the one back so it doesn't fit you, or both of them if they're not suitable. So again, a lot of our members have been trying to reduce down the number of returns, and they've used technology to do this, and they continue to use technology so that they give the best possible information on their websites about the garments, about the garment fit, the structure, the fabrics, and incorporating video so that consumers can see how it looks on, how it moves, and finally make that purchase decision.
Yeah, that's a really strong way forward. And interestingly, I don't know if you're a fan of Dragon's Den at all.
Yes.
But this year I watched a really interesting pitch where one lady came on to demonstrate this app that she has had built. And essentially the app is for people to take pictures of the clothes in their wardrobe so they're aware of every item of clothing they have, and they can actually make different combinations instead of the usual, oh, I don't know what to wear all the time. It gets to the weekend and a lot of us are like, oh, I don't have anything to wear. And that's where it's so easy for us to go online and buy something so quickly, whereas her app is also able to give AI combinations of suitable garments, maybe combinations that they could wear, but also suggest other items that are second-hand rental pieces. So
I don't know about you though, it would take me weeks to photograph every item in my wardrobe.
I know, you'd have to start with a fresh wardrobe or something, but it's a shift.
Yeah,
it is. It's a different mentality to the usual. There's nothing for me to wear.
Yeah, and it all also sort of pays tribute to stylists, personal stylists, where a lot of retailers might have had those in the past. They perhaps don't have as many nowadays. Those people who would say, wear this with this, and have a 5-piece capsule wardrobe and have 25 looks from it. So I can see that AI is a useful tool there, but it's again still in its infancy, and I'm sure there'll be much more refinement to something like that going forward.
Hopefully it'd be lovely to see. So finally, how do you think fashion leaders can drive transformation for their business?
This is a really difficult one, and I've been thinking about this because when you get to my age, and a lot of the fashion leaders are sort of my age and younger, of course, we didn't grow up with technology in the way that your generation, other generations have. And so we've learned our way around technology. And the younger generation that are coming through now are the ones who are very receptive. I'm not saying that the older generation isn't receptive at all. It's part of my job to be receptive. But I think we have to listen to some of that younger generation more. So those leaders have to be prepared to listen to the ground up, to see what's happening and to see where those suggestions are coming from, to work with companies like Fortitude to make sure that they're getting the very latest information, the very latest data about the direction that competitors are moving in, because nobody wants to be left behind either. But it is really a case of looking to the younger generation and making sure that their voice is heard and their experience is used to help to support any digital transformation which goes ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that's a great, very open-minded way to achieve success. We know that we are all trying to move towards the future, or those of us who are, it's definitely a case of listening to those around you. So I really do love that answer you've given.
Good. I mean, I hope that that's what most of our members are doing at the moment, and certainly we'd encourage them to do that. We're always presenting them with webinars, with events, free events, which keep them up to date on what's happening in the world of technology. And a lot of the time it's younger people who are coming to those events, not necessarily those who are sort of higher up in the organisation because they perhaps can't afford the time out. But listening organisations are the way forward, and I know that a lot of our members are very committed to that.
That's fantastic. And on that note, Julie, it's been a pleasure to have you today. Thank you so much for this conversation. I hope our listeners have really taken some valuable insights from it and really enjoyed.
I do too. Thank you.